Welcome to Life Choices. Today we have a fabulous guest for you. Her name is Andrea Goeglein, and Andrea is the author of a wonderful book series called the Don't Die book series, and we're going to find out a lot about those. She is also an applied positive psychologist, so we're going to find out what that's all about as well. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you. I love the opportunity to be here, and I appreciate you giving it to me.
Well, we're glad you're here. So, tell us a little bit about your books. I'm so interested in the title, Don't Die.
Yes. Well, what is so interesting about that title, Don't Die, is that it goes directly against everything I teach in positive psychology about language, like, do not say what you don't want, say what you do want. However, the concept of Don't Die was established so that people would reflect on their moment-by-moment existence. And so all the books are true stories told in a very short manner with 4 key learning points so that within an hour someone could read through the book. But their whole focus is don't die without fulfilling what you want to be. Don't die waiting to be brave. Don't die, don't die with vacation time on the books. It is that knowing that, wait a minute, I better pause long enough to say, I do have life choices, and I better start making better ones so that I don't die missing out on what I wanted to do.
I've heard that saying a lot, don't die with your story inside you.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
Wayne Dyer, and in fact, Wayne Dyer and his daughter, because I had trademarked this, was, as you know, and some of your great teachings along the way, you trademark things that are a part of the work you're going to take with you forever. And it just so happened that when Wayne Dyer and his daughter did a book, Don't Die with Your Music Still in You, their publisher, Hay House, had to actually license for that release only my trademark. And that, again, goes back to the life choices.
Yes.
I could have just created a title and never gone through the process of trademarking any part. There wouldn't have been anything. So it was, little things that happened.
But so many people don't know to do that. I know today it's so much easier to write a book than it was a while back because of the self-publishing, and so many people are self-publishing, but they don't know how to trademark or how to take care of themselves or their title.
Yeah, one of the things that I did, and this was, gosh, your topic about life choices, because you invited me, I kept reflecting, like, what did that actually mean? Like, what choices? Because many times I'm not front of mind making a choice, and many times, we're just going from one thing to the other. And I happen to be a person who stayed completely out of the self-help genre. And then somewhere around '04, after I had gotten involved in positive psychology, stumbled onto Jack Canfield. And he was doing a workshop here at Lake Las Vegas, which was lovely. So the choice was, I get to go away for a week, a staycation kind of thing in a beautiful place. But he was pushing, he was telling the story about the chicken soup for the souls. And I just sat there saying, geez, there's a zillion books. The work that I do is not, it is the individuals that are unique, not necessarily books that are unique.
Right.
Okay, so it was the story. And so I just sat there and a thought went through my mind that said, unless my book had a trademark, unless it was a product that actually built on something, books are nice, and I had actually published some up until that point, but it wasn't actually a part of my business plan.
Yes.
So again, choice to go to a workshop, a choice to hear something differently, it all worked.
Yes, yes, I like it. So tell us a little bit about the type of psychology that you're in.
I have been very blessed. My actual education is in organizational psychology. My PhD is in organizational psychology. And I did my dissertation in the moral development of transformational leaders, which in and of itself at this moment in time is a very interesting.
Very timely topic.
Yes, it is very timely, and it was a wonderful thing to study. And my first goal was I was going to work in large corporations. But shifted that because I had always owned businesses, everything from a Haagen-Dazs at that point to some Chinese restaurants before I ever got to the point that I was getting this doctorate. And it was not until, so psychology, the psychology of what makes people want to work, What makes people, when you come in, what makes you want to do this? Why this choice? There's actually something inside of you. And we can identify those things so that you can replicate them for yourself. What's good for you is not going to be good for me. And that's what we know, that that's all based on the values and, you know, the energies that you bring and all of those kind of things. So I had that kind of grounding. And then life was biting me in the tail, you know. There was the market crash in 2001 that bit everyone in the tail. My husband had the third of a major job loss in '01. And somewhere along that line, he sent me an email from Marty Seligman, the founder of Positive Psychology, offering what became their master's program, but this was a precursor. And so from the moment I completed that intensive 6 months, everything about my life changed, and I have been very committed to the work of making sure that when I work with people and for people, that's what they take away from it also.
Now, do you do seminars? Do you work one-on-one? How do you work with people?
Yes. And through the glory, you know, everyone's talking about this disruptive moment in time that we're in right now. I actually have always loved working through video mechanisms and live video mechanisms. I happen to be gifted a Zoom membership by the founder, Eric. And he had gone through my bio online. We don't know each other. We've never met. He, you know, was probably early in his cycle of developing Zoom and was targeting people who he thought would use it. So for me, we are in a moment in time where the potential of learning the great work that you have done, that everyone has done, we now get to step in and out of it and add to it. So I love people. I like groups. I like very active groups. I have clients that I hike. Like I moved a hike with a client where the first X amount of hours of this hike is our working on the goals and checking in on what happens. I moved it for today. We're going to do that tomorrow. Everything that has to do with online learning, I have an online learning program in language, video, TV, podcast. I have a new podcast in development, Hey Boss Lady.
Oh, that sounds fun.
It is, and it's with one of my former clients. It is a woman who was very accomplished in the corporate world and still is. And she had an additional desire to broaden some, and I said, why don't we just combine our resources and just create a story. Who knows if it's going to last? Like nothing has to last forever. Again, choices.
Yes.
Like that mentality that, oh, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. Maybe not.
No.
Yeah.
I think most people change careers at least 2 or 3 times in their lifetime.
And I think we're coming to a point in time where that will happen. You know, if every 36 months, my husband, who is 20 years ahead of me, I remembered how distressed his father was, who was obviously, you know, 30 years ahead of him, was when my husband switched jobs a few times. And he said, oh, you know, you've got to, and
got to stay in that one job.
Right. At that point in time, we already knew that wasn't, and that was 40 years ago.
Yes.
Now, because I have the privilege of having, you know, not only grandchildren and a millennial daughter, I have a tribe of young people around me who teach me more than I can share.
Yes.
And the truth is, and my work in positive psychology brings this truth, it's not about how many careers you have going forward. It is about you getting very clear, becoming very aware. Who am I? What do I value? How do I take my strengths, my values, and my behaviors? And as the world changes, I change. And as the world changes, I change. It just keeps flowing.
Now, you know that the majority of our audience is over 50. And a lot of these people are saying, you know, it's too late. I can't go and work anymore. I can't start a new career. I can't do something different. How do you feel about that?
Well, you know, as a person who's soon to be 65, how I feel about that is the following. Don't die. My trademark says it all. There is no point in time when learning has to end. What has to continue to happen is for you to become inspired internally. And that does, the next thing you do may not be a paycheck, but it should be based on what brings you alive through your strengths and values. So, I am a planner. I have love of learning as one of my top strengths. So for me, I will admit, I have always looked out and said, if I'm using this strength now, what's it going to look like 10 years from now? So for me, just yesterday, I was in a conversation for well over 15 years, ever since being involved in positive psychology. I knew that aging well, that well-being as you age, so from the 65 to 95 part of the road, you can't put lipstick on that pig. The runway gets shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. There is no way around that, but what doesn't change is how much joy you can create in your life through how you think, who you surround you with and how they think, and what you bring up inside of you. There is never a moment when we cannot create love and joy in our lives.
Exactly.
There is no age limit on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I teach art, and most of the ladies that come to me are older, and most of them are still carrying around some trauma from the second grade or the third grade, when their teacher threw their picture in the trash, or their teacher didn't put their picture on the wall along with the rest of the students. Do you think a lot of people are dealing with those kinds of
Well, that
issues?
helps me speak very directly to why I created the Don't Die series. So that happens to be true. It's true of those people. It's true of me. It's true of you. It's true of all of us. No matter how aware we are, there's these little things that got implanted in our cells at some point in the road, and then something else happens years later, and it's like it jumps up and bites our little noses or something like that. So, awareness and perspective is the very first thing, and it's the thing I spend the most time in these very short books. If you can start practicing, like a story, we call it, it's your history, or it's your high story.
I like it.
Okay, so how do you recraft? Recrafting your story is something that is very deeply ingrained in the psychology of positive psychology, and it's used throughout the self-help world. It's why writing and journal writing is so important, because I can tell you two versions of my life. Oh my gosh, I was abused, my brother was a drug addict, this thing happened, my husband got fired, we lost businesses, my children got cancer. I could tell you that version of my life. Or I could tell you that I have gotten the opportunity to live a life as complex as anyone who's ever been put on this earth. And no matter how traumatized I have been committed to resolving that story and making it work for me as best I can. Same story,
Different choice.
different choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, different choices.
Yes.
And yet, why would someone get stuck in the first version? There are a lot of people who are stuck in that. They relive all that trauma and they tell it to everybody they know. Why are they stuck there?
Okay, so in my work, I am not the nicest applied positive psychologist to work for.
You're not.
I am not the nicest positive psychologist. By the time, both in price, and I have created my pricing structure so that it is painful for you if you don't do the homework. I cannot make you better. I cannot make you give up that story. No matter how many times you tell it, and no matter how many times I say, did that version of it create pain in your heart, or did it help you resolve the problem? There is no amount of time that I can say that to you that you're really going to do anything different. So here's the deal. Part of the process is I don't care why. I could not care less what happened to you. Now, we know that's not true. What I am saying to you is, I don't care about why, but I do care about you moving past the why into what you are possible of becoming. To your purpose, it's all about choice. And when you work with me, you better be ready to make that choice. Because otherwise it's going to cost you a lot of money. You're going to make me the enemy. That's okay. I've got skin thicker than I don't know what, because I care about you more than you might care about you.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah.
When I see people that I know that are reliving their past traumas year after year after year, I know they don't care about themselves. They don't feel worthy to care about themselves. And I try to teach them or help them to realize the good traits that they have. But there are some people that they are just so hung on to that story.
Well, and I'll give you a few different resources. The one that stuck in my mind, you know, everything about my own development has a point in time, an anchor, where someone said something, did something, something happened, where I finally was ready to do it differently. That's just not my gig. It's everyone's gig. So mine happened to be Wayne Dyer giving the analogy about a snake. That a snake bites you, but it is you who allows the venom to go through your body. So someone may do something totally beyond human comprehension. It was that evil to you. However, in your retelling of that story, you're the one who's creating the trauma. That does not mean that you must not offload to trusted, trained people the original version of that story, so that that agony can get out of your body.
Right.
But what you have to discipline yourself to, there's a book called Forgive for Good, where they suggest you have a committee of 5. And I love the number 5, so it works for me. You have 5 people who, when something traumatic happens in your life, you go to them and you tell them the worst part of it. You don't edit anything. After that 5th telling, and that can happen in a week, in a day, it could take a year because the thing is so horrible.
Right.
What you do is make a personal choice for yourself that unless I go back to those 5 people, I have to begin to re-edit, such as, you know, I'm approaching the 1st anniversary of the greatest loss I've ever encountered in my life. I am nowhere over it, but I am working on it. That could be defining the 1st anniversary of you losing a child. That's one way of saying it. The other way is to relive the moment by moment distress of losing that child a year later. That's a choice. So we get to make those, having a system in place where you get to really tell the original story. That's very important. I don't want to, I'm not one of these get over it. I grew up in a household where getting over it was the mantra.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to get over that getting over it. Like, that is actually, and many times if you look at the people you're encountering, probably somewhere in their growing up years, they were given a system of how to deal with life. And they just haven't realized it's no longer working, that they are now the adults and they get to alter the system to what works best for them.
Or maybe this system never worked.
You know, here's my take on that. We are all placed on this earth to experience things that we have no idea. And so I assume that in this moment in time, you're here for my good, I'm here for your good, even if you came to kill me. It's that clear to me. It is about, there is no mistakes. When someone says there are no mistakes, and then they want to tell you how horrible something is, of course this was a mistake. No. The mistake is if you don't learn from it.
Don't learn the lesson.
Yeah, that's the mistake.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you're going to probably get a chance to do it over, and hopefully you'll give it up the next time.
And there are so many lessons to be learned. Wow.
You know, we never stop learning. That's why there is no age. And the best we can hope for, you know, in the Gary Russo book, there is a Navajo, you know, at least the version that I was attributed to, a Navajo saying that when you came into the world, you cried and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you exit, the world cries and you're rejoicing.
I've never heard that.
Yeah.
How incredible.
Isn't it, it's really, it's one of those things, like, it was told to me to be a Native American, saying, like all things, it got passed around a million times, that what I know is whoever created it did an incredible thing, and it has warmed my heart every time I get to repeat it.
Oh yes, it's really nice. Tell us again exactly.
Okay, so when you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced.
Right.
Live your life so that when you pass, you are rejoicing, and the world is crying.
Wow, that gives me chills. It's just amazing. Now, is that in your book now?
It is. It's in. It was one of the stories that one of the sayings that I had in the unsung
Which one?
book. The "Don't Die with Your Song Unsung."
Oh, I have to get that
Yes,
book.
yes.
That's going to be awesome. I want to keep that.
Yes. Yes.
That's really good.
That can be arranged,
Oh, good. Now, how many books are there in this series?
In this series, there are 3. And the first one was created as a prototype of what I wanted to create. I then hoped that a publisher I had a good relationship with was going to pick it up, but I had a specific idea for what this was, and their ideas and mine were not the same, so I independently published them. And then I stopped after the Brave book, because the process is the process. And the story is only what you bring to me next. So I do workshops where people come and we work on that. The real model is for young people. The real model that I developed around this was to have college-age people come together in dance festivals where they went through the 4 stages with a story that they were telling themselves up to that point. They danced it out, they wrote it out, they did it. I never got sponsors, it never quite happened, but I want you to know that dream is not dead yet.
I think there's a time and place for that, and I don't think it's too far away.
Me neither.
Sounds great.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. When I work with writers, as you know, and I help them, sometimes I just edit their books, sometimes I help them take their story and turn it into a real story or into a book. And, and when I work with writers, I find that I go through all types of insecurities with them. They're unsure about telling their story. They're unsure how people are going to react to them if they tell the truth about things that have happened. They're unsure about what to do with it, how to write it, how to publish it, how to get it out there. Did you go through those unsure feelings yourself?
100%. And in fact, to the degree that my hope for the book, for after Unsung was written, my hope was there would be a 5 years later next version where Gary and I came together again, told what the journey had been like. And I could not get him, as we went into 2015, I just could not get him to focus on doing that. And finally, my editor, because I have always hired a professional staff like yourself to work with me on this. And somewhere along the line, someone said, why don't you just write your own story? And I, oh, no, not doing that. But that is exactly what happened. Because my work has always been so focused on you, or on the yous that I work with, my story just naturally comes out. Like when you want to tell me how hard something is, I have to like hold it back like, darling, do you really think that I have not gone through crap just because I smile?
I know. I know. Isn't it hard to keep your mouth shut and not say, I've had worse happen than that?
Exactly. And there is a wonderful line that came out of the show Friends, or no, it was the second iteration of the show when 2 of the people went off and did a spin-off. And one of them said, you know, could you dial down the happy? And that is a very respectful statement. I do dial down the happy when I am with people, because it can be incredibly annoying when you're viewing me, you're in the midst of a trauma, but you're viewing me as past or never having experienced, because that is a very human trait. When we're in our state of agony, we do not believe that anyone can understand. We are terminally unique in that moment, in our minds. And you have to let people be terminally unique for a moment. It's just how many moments they stay there that becomes either where they stay or where they evolve out of. But I do have to be highly respectful that, you know, sometimes someone's just not ready for me to be in a good mood. Ask my husband.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
And you know, when people are going through hard times and they're very sad or they're depressed, it's very hard for us to, you know, we don't want to go and start telling them everything's going right in our lives at that time, because they're dealing with their own trauma.
And that you have just brought up a perfect choice moment. So we think when we encounter a loved one, friend, family, you're in the community, a stranger, I don't care who it is, who's in a state of really traumatic, and we think we have to solve the problem. We think we have to contribute. That empathy is us telling our story so that they feel, they know they're not alone. No. Worst thing you can do. When someone is in a state of trauma, all they need to know, and I think where we are right now, that term, you are not alone, we are in this together, at that moment in time, that's all the person needs. And if you can remember that silence is your best friend at that moment and will warm their heart more than any words you could ever say, you know, if it's appropriate, you hold their hand and you let them say whatever they need to say. You just don't feel obligated to contribute. And that's one of the hardest lessons that I had to learn in my work and with my friends and loved ones. And it is something that would serve everyone well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because most of us want to at least attempt to fix it for them.
Correct.
And we can't.
Or to make you feel that you and I, you know, I had something, oh, if you think that's bad, you know, listen to me.
Yeah.
And where, you know, I learned this the hard way through clients where, you know, my work is in business. My work is about your well-being, using your strengths in business in order to create your well-being on an ongoing basis. But, you know, my clients all have lives outside their businesses.
Exactly.
So the ones that have stayed with me the most are those who have lost children. And it's happened with an infant, with a college-age person, with a son that was the CEO of a company. At that moment in time, the number of relationships that get fractured in their world is untold, because people want to console the person.
Yes.
No. Please just let that person say everything, that, especially if the teenager had not been a great teenager, and then the teenager dies, and then everyone wants to say, but you know, you never knew what was going to happen to him because he was always this way. No, 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 no. Hush your mouth, hold their hand. There'll be a time to empathize later.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Such good advice.
Thank you.
You know, we're at the end of our time, but I really want to thank you for being here. I mean, you're amazing.
Thank
I
you.
could listen to you forever.
Thank you.
And so thank you for being here. Please tell my audience how they can reach you, how they can get copies of your books.
Okay, so like it or not, Amazon is where you can get the books. My website, servingsuccess.com, servingsuccess.com, has a wealth of free material, including the first Don't Die book, Don't Die with Vacation Time on the books. It's got free audios, it's got meditation tapes, writing, reading, short tapes for you to be able, videos for you to be able to, see, I'm aging myself, for you to be able to just get those habits started. And then, of course, on YouTube with my name.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I know that everyone is going to want to go there.
Terrific.
And that's Andrea Goeglein.
Andrea
So
Goeglein.
don't forget her name if you're going to YouTube.
Yes, there you go, there you go.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you on our next Life Choices. Choices. We have choices. They are the source of the success in our lives. When things happen to us, we can choose to believe they happened for a reason. We can discover opportunities in the most difficult experiences if we are willing to look for them. It is what we choose to think about each experience that determines how we respond to it. How we respond determines whether or not we find richer, more purposeful, more joyful lives. We are the only ones who can choose our attitudes and the principles that we live by. Choose well, my friends. Choose well.